In this chapter, we're going to focus on the following 10 keywords: firebrand, ignite, inflict, hostile, random, incentive, authoritative, vicious, pervade, and leisurely. Now let's start with the first keyword, firebrand. Now if you look at this picture, we can see a man shouting again in his megaphone, and maybe he's doing that because he's angry, or maybe he's doing that to encourage other people to do things. But how does that relate to the word firebrand? Let's find out. A firebrand is a countable noun. If you describe someone as a firebrand, especially someone who is very active in politics, you mean that they are always trying to make people take strong action. For example, his reputation as a young firebrand. And synonyms for firebrand are the words rabble-rouser, activist, and incendiary. So the next time you remember the picture of this man shouting in his megaphone, remember the word firebrand and what it means. And now for the next keyword, ignite. Now what we have in the picture here is a match. And obviously this match has just been lighted. So how do you think that relates to the word ignite? Does it have the same meaning of lighting up a match? Let's find out. Ignite is a verb. When you ignite something, or when it ignites, it starts burning or explodes. For example, the bombs ignited a fire which destroyed some 60 houses. So the bomb caused a fire, and that fire destroyed 60 houses. And synonyms for ignite are the words set fire to, light, set alight, or torch. And ignite can also be used in a different context. If something or someone ignites your feelings, they cause you to have very strong feelings about something. For example, there was one teacher who really ignited my interest in words. So the next time you remember this picture of the match, remember the word ignite and what it means. And now for the next keyword, inflict. And the picture we have here is taken from a battle. And obviously in battle, all you can think about is damage, injury, death, and other bad stuff happening. So how does the word inflict relate to all that? Let's find out. Now, inflict is a verb. To inflict harm or damage on someone or something means to make them suffer it. For example, rebels say they have inflicted heavy casualties on government forces. And synonyms for inflict are the words impose, exact, and administer. And we can use infliction as a noun. For example, without the unnecessary or cruel infliction of pain. And synonyms for infliction are the words imposition, administration, perpetration, and exaction. So the next time you remember this picture of the battle, remember the word inflict and what it means. And now for the next keyword, hostile. Now, if you look at this picture, you can see this man shouting on the phone, and no matter what the problem might be or whatever he heard before he started shouting, I don't think it's reason enough to start shouting in this way, in this aggressive way. But anyway, we're not here to judge the man as usual. We are here to learn what the meaning of the word we have and how does it relate to the picture we have here. Does it relate to how angry the man is, to his attitude? Let's find out. Now, hostile is an adjective. If you are hostile to another person or an idea, you disagree with them or disapprove of them, often showing this in your behavior. For example, many people felt he would be hostile to the idea of foreign intervention. He would disagree, disapprove, and that will show in his behavior. And synonyms for hostile are the words unfriendly, belligerent, antagonistic, and unkind. And hostile can also be used to describe someone who is unfriendly and aggressive, maybe like this man we saw in the picture. For example, the prisoner eyed him in hostile silence. And hostile can also be used in a different context. Hostile situations and conditions make it difficult for you to achieve something. For example, some of the most hostile climatic conditions in the world, it's difficult to live there. Or we can say the world's trading environment is likely to become increasingly hostile and making it difficult to achieve anything in this kind of atmosphere or environment. Now, synonyms for hostile in this context are the words inhospitable, adverse, alien, and uncongenial. And finally, in a war, you use hostile to describe your enemy's forces, organizations, weapons, land, and activities. For example, the city is encircled by a hostile army, by the enemy. Or we say, they were in hostile territory. They were in the enemy's territory. So the next time you remember this man shouting on the phone, remember the word hostile and what it means. And now for the next keyword, random. We can look at the dice we have here, and immediately you know that there is something that has to do with luck. Now, if you throw the dice every time, there is no way you are going to get the numbers you want. It has to do with luck, and the numbers you get do not usually come in a specific order. Does that mean that they come at random or in a random order? Is this the meaning of random? Let's find out. Now, random is an adjective. A random sample or method is one in which all the people or things involved have an equal chance of being chosen. For example, the survey used a random sample of 2,000 people across England and Wales. And synonyms for random in this context are the words chance, spot, casual, or stray. We can use randomly as an adverb. For example, interviews with a randomly selected sample of 30 girls aged between 13 and 18. And random can also be used in a different context. If you describe events as random, you mean that they do not seem to follow a definite plan or pattern. For example, children's words and actions are often fairly random. They do not follow a definite plan or pattern. And a lot of parents fail to understand that and think that their children should be acting like adults, which is a mistake. Anyway, we use randomly as an adverb. For example, drinks and magazines left scattered randomly around. And we can use randomness as an uncountable noun. For example, isn't this a demand to control the randomness of life? And we have a common phrase we use with random, and that is when we say at random. Now, if you choose people or things at random, you do not use any particular method, so they all have an equal chance of being chosen. For example, we received several answers and we picked one at random. And synonyms for random in this context are the words haphazardly, randomly, arbitrarily, and casually. So the next time you remember this picture with the dices in it, remember the word random and what it means. And now for the next keyword, incentive. Now, if you look at the picture, little boys can be a nightmare for barbers because they move a lot and it makes it very difficult for the barber to do his job. But we can see that the barber has a trick up his sleeve. He has this small lollipop, and maybe he promised the boy to give him a lollipop if he stayed still until the barber finished. And it seemed to have worked. But can we call this an incentive? What is the meaning of incentive? Let's find out. Incentive is a variable noun. If something is an incentive to do something, it encourages you to do it. For example, there is little or no incentive to adopt such measures, or many companies in Britain are keen on the idea of tax incentives for research and development, or R&D. And synonyms for incentive are the words inducement, motive, encouragement, or urge. So the next time you remember this picture at the barber's shop, remember the word incentive and what it means. And now for the next keyword, authoritative. Now, if you look at this picture, you can see an officer telling another soldier or somebody of a lower rank to do something very angrily, absolutely establishing his authority from the picture we just saw. So can we call him authoritative? What is the meaning of authoritative? Let's find out. Authoritative is an adjective. Now, someone or something that is authoritative gives an impression of power and importance and is likely to be obeyed. For example, he has a commanding presence and a deep authoritative voice. Now, synonyms for authoritative are the words commanding, lordly, masterly, or imposing. We can say authoritatively as an adverb. For example, the man pushed his way authoritatively through the crowd. And authoritative can also be used in a different context. Now, someone or something that is authoritative has a lot of knowledge of a particular subject. For example, the first authoritative study of polio was published in 1840. And synonyms for authoritative in this context are the words reliable, learned, sound, and true. We can use authoritatively as an adverb here. For example, my own life is the only thing I can speak authoritatively about. So the next time you remember the picture of this officer, remember the word authoritative and what it means. And now for the next key word, vicious. If you look at this dog, we usually look at pictures of dogs and we kind of admire what we see. But when you look at this dog, you kind of feel afraid and you don't want to get anywhere near this dog. Maybe because he is vicious. Can we say vicious about this dog? But what is the meaning of vicious? Let's find out. Now, vicious is an adjective. A vicious person or a vicious blow is violent and cruel. For example, he was a cruel and vicious man. And synonyms for vicious in this context are the words savage, brutal, violent, and bad. We can say viciously as an adverb. For example, she had been viciously attacked with a hammer, brutally, violently. Or we can say viciousness as an uncountable noun. For example, the intensity and viciousness of these attacks. And synonyms for viciousness are the words savagery, cruelty, brutality, and ferocity. And vicious can also be used in a different context. A vicious remark is cruel and intended to upset someone. For example, it is a deliberate, nasty, and vicious attack on a young man's character. So here it is not a physical attack, but it's as bad. It is on the man's character. And synonyms for vicious in this context are the words malicious, vindictive, spiteful, and mean. Or we can use viciously as an adverb here. For example, he deserved to die, said Penelope viciously. So the next time you remember the picture of this fierce dog, remember the word vicious and what it means. And now for the next key word, pervade. Now if you look at this picture, you can see that there is a clear sign in the middle that says, please leave nothing but your footprints. Well, obviously this might be close to a beach where they're asking you in a very nice way not to leave any garbage around. And here, if you look at this sign, it is definitely noticeable. You can see it. It is big enough and it's definitely on your way to the beach. So how does that relate to the word pervade? Let's find out. Now, pervade is a verb. If something pervades a place or thing, it is a noticeable feature throughout it. For example, the smell of sawdust and glue pervaded the factory. It was noticeable everywhere. Or we can say the corruption that pervades every stratum of the country. And that is also a noticeable thing that you can see everywhere. And synonyms for pervade are spread through, fill, affect, and penetrate. So the next time you remember the picture of this lovely sign, remember the word pervade and what it means. And now for the last key word for this chapter, leisurely. Now you look at this picture and you can see three people walking in the middle of a forest or a park. And if you look at them, they're not running, they're walking slowly, and they're doing that for pleasure, for fun. So how does that relate to the word leisurely? Let's find out. Now, leisurely is an adjective. A leisurely action is done in a relaxed and unhurried way, just like the picture we saw. They're doing it for pleasure. For example, lunch was a leisurely affair. It was done in a relaxed and unhurried way. Or we can say Tweed walked at a leisurely pace, just like those people we saw in the picture. And synonyms for leisurely are the words unhurried, relaxed, slow, or easy. We can also use leisurely as an adverb. For example, we walked leisurely into the hotel. So the next time you remember this picture of these three people walking slowly in a forest or a park, remember the word leisurely and what it means. And that is all for this chapter.